The lives of the passengers of a runaway 747 are in jeopardy. Can the Incredible Hulk save them? Friday, beginning at 8, 7 Central and Mountain Time.
Tomorrow on CBS.
Battle of the Network shows. Join Rick Brooks and Mike Kogel as they explore the TV of the 70s and 80s through hand-picked episodes of their favorite and not-so-favorite series. All right, right now we're going to talk about The Incredible Hulk, which was a 1970s TV series on CBS. Adaptation, of course, of the world-famous comic book, the comic book Hulk, the character Hulk, finally came to the small screen on CBS. And I think I remember watching it on Friday nights when I was a kid. I enjoyed it. And it definitely had a certain formula to it. Usually, I think there were two transformations from David Banner, as he was known in this show, not in the comic book. David Banner turned into the Hulk twice each episode, so you'd always get to see a little bit of the Hulk. But the bulk of the show was actually Bill Bixby as David Banner wandering around the country, trying to find a cure for the condition that turned him into the Hulk, and becoming embroiled in various circumstances and situations along the way. So it was much like The Fugitive, which is another one of my all-time favorite shows, with David Janssen from the 60s. And they sort of took that premise, combined it with the comic book science fiction elements, and turned it into an hour-long weekly TV show. And I do remember watching a lot when I was a kid, but it's been years since I've watched a lot of it, so it was fun revisiting it for this. And I think it was on FX. When FX first launched, they started showing a lot of superhero shows during the day, so I think they brought it back for that. And I think it was on Retro TV when it was RTV, when it was what MeTV is right now. They showed it on there for a while, but and it's available on streaming services now, but I haven't actually seen a lot of it in a long time, but I really enjoyed revisiting it for this.
Yeah, I think it aired on Sci-Fi every now and then, too.
Okay.
Like marathons. Like when that last Hulk movie was out.
Right.
They had some up. I remember watching it then.
Okay. The whole run has been out on DVD for a while, too. This particular episode is called 747, and it's from the first season. So I think it's about not too far into the show's run, actually. It's about 8 or 9 episodes. And it starts out with Bill Bixby as David. He sees a newspaper story about, I believe it was a famous researcher, scientist, Dr. Sanford Brown, who has done research that he thinks can help him. But he's in Chicago, and I can't remember where David is at the beginning.
He's in San Francisco.
He's in San Francisco, okay. So he's calling the office and...
On a payphone.
Right, so on a payphone. And he has to find a way to get out there quickly.
By 5 o'clock.
Yes.
Because Dr. Brown's going on a tour to Europe, and he's not going to be able to wait around.
Correct. Yes, so the very friendly and helpful receptionist of Dr. Brown informs him that if he can get out there by 5 o'clock, she can squeeze him into the doctor's schedule before he gets ready to skedaddle to Europe. So the quickest way to get there is to take a plane.
Terrible idea.
It is a terrible idea?
Well, for normal people, it's not a terrible idea. But anyone who's flown at all knows that just normal everyday flying is a hotbed for anger.
Yes, and of course, stress is what triggers the condition that turns David Banner into the Hulk.
That's right. You don't want to see him when he's angry.
Yes, especially on an enclosed space.
Thousands of feet in the air.
Well, now that you mention it, it does sound like a bad idea. But I don't know if...
any along the way, even before the airplane, something could happen.
Yes.
He could have to wait too long in security.
Right.
He could have to wait too long in the public bathroom.
That could be an aggravator. He could be aggravated by the price of the Cinnabon stand at the airport.
Exactly.
And complain.
Certainly at the time, he could have been aggravated, as we saw in the classic movie Airplane, by any number of solicitors.
That's right. There's definitely a lot of pitfalls even before he gets on the plane.
Having to pay $25 for an extra bag.
Yes.
Although I think he only had his carry-on bag. He generally travels light.
He travels light, yeah.
And I think by the end, he doesn't even have his carry-on.
No, he doesn't. He travels light, I guess, out of by necessity, and also it just seems like, of course, one of the things the Hulk is famous for is every episode he's walking off with the lonely man or whatever that theme is.
Right.
And he's walking off usually somewhere after his life is in pieces. Yeah. He's defeated again, and he's walking off into who knows where. And he's got everything except he basically, you'd think he would have like a stick with like a kerchief tied, yeah, like a right. bindle tied around his shoulder is the only thing that would round out that picture. But
yeah, because at least in this case, spoilers, but he's going to have to buy new luggage, not just new clothes, because a lot of episodes also just involve him getting some sort of odd job so he can afford his rambling ways.
Right.
You know, eat and buy new clothes, which is a constant. And occasionally, I guess, buy new luggage.
Right. So he's got this itinerant life, and he's always looking for, exactly, that's the conflict he's facing, to sustain himself, to not destroy the United States while simultaneously searching in vain for something that will cure this horrible condition. Right. So that's where we are when he gets on the plane.
Yeah. And there's a subplot.
There is a subplot. The pilot of the plane, and I wasn't clear about this until later in the episode, but there's certain artifacts on the plane that are very valuable.
Yes.
And
apparently it's the King Tut exhibit.
Yes. Yeah, I think the episode description that I read for this episode before I watched it said something about Egyptian artifacts being on the plane, or some episode description. Well, it's not just Egyptian artifacts. It's King Tut apparently is on the plane. So this pilot sees an opportunity, and he's got one of the flight attendants, stewardess back then, flight attendant now in our more enlightened times. She's in on it with him. So they have a plan which seems massively ill-conceived to me, but they decide to go through with it anyway. And this unfolds while they're on the plane. And basically the plane involves incapacitating the other pilots with drugs that slipped into their coffee.
Yeah.
And the scheme would be that I guess that the pilot who's the instigator of this will fly the plane, will take over the plane and land it somewhere and make off with the artifacts.
I believe so. But they also have... Oh, no, he uses a parachute later.
Yes. So I'm not sure exactly how he intended to get the...
I think they were going to dump the artifacts out of the plane, maybe.
Right.
Like they went to a lower elevation.
Yeah.
Intentionally. I think maybe they were going to do a DB Cooper and
right, I see, and then come back later
with the artifacts.
Oh, jump out with the artifacts.
Maybe. Yeah.
See, that seems difficult to me. This is just one of the things.
Maybe they were going to dump them out.
Yeah.
That's.
They apparently weren't going to dump the passengers out and keep the artifacts in the plane. So at least they didn't do that.
Yeah, they weren't going to hurt it. I mean, other than making people sleepy for a while, they weren't going to hurt anybody.
Right. The idea was, this would just be a nice, easy thing. Knock out, the flight crew and most of the attendants and do your business and leave, and nobody would be hurt.
That's right.
However, so there were some mix-ups happen.
Yeah.
Basically, because of a mix-up, and there's an elderly couple that's sitting next to it. One of those charming elderly couples you always find when you're traveling, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, they've been married a long time.
They've just decided to travel.
Yes.
Yeah. And the man is a bit cantankerous and needs his coffee.
Yes.
Can't wait for the whole process. And he just goes, and while the stewardess or flight attendant is preparing the coffees, in giant styrofoam cups, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
These very large cups of coffee.
Yeah.
She turns away or steps away, and you see his hand just appear and steal one of these cups of coffee.
Right.
And he drinks it and falls asleep in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
He also drinks it very quickly. If I remember, it's either him or one of the pilots who downs a cup of coffee like it's water.
Yeah, they weren't sipping
and
enjoying this beverage leisurely. They were chugging it.
Right.
Yeah, so this elderly gentleman, and they're sitting right next to, our hero David is on the aisle. They're sitting next to him, regaling him with their stories of the road or whatnot and their marriage. And yes, the guy in the middle, the older guy's in the middle seat, and he goes right to sleep, basically, because he's had this truck coffee. And David, being a scientist and a physician, instantly notices that something's wrong.
Yeah.
And, of course, the wife, she doesn't think anything's wrong. Oh, he's always like this after he drinks, coffee or something like that.
Yeah.
But he surreptitiously checks his pulse and realizes that, I don't know how exactly he realized it, but he realized that he ain't just sleeping. He's knocked out.
Right.
And then he starts asking questions to the flight attendant.
Right.
And he gets a little nosy. And as a result, he stumbles upon this plot.
Yeah. And there's also a kid on board.
Yes.
And I forget, is the kid in the seat in front of them? Is that...
Actually, it's...
Or is that just a separate thing?
It's a separate thing. There's a separate... In another row of three seats, there's a nervous traveler.
That's right.
A know-it-all kid who... Actually, he's an aviation buff.
Yeah.
And his mother.
Right.
And the nervous traveler, he's in the shoe business.
Right.
Which seemingly totally... the woman, the kid's mother is totally disinterested in that. Much to the chagrin of the guy in the shoe business.
He's kind of got... Well... He sees maybe a possible opportunity.
Right.
He's also nervous. This is his first time flying.
Right.
And he's like, 50 or something.
Right.
The kid, is an aviation buff and is trying to ease his worries. And, and he's such an aviation buff that his collar on his shirt looks like the wings of a plane.
Yes.
In a way. It's a very large collar. In the style of the time.
He loves flying.
He does love
He wants to fly. He wishes he could fly a plane himself.
Right.
One might even say that if something happened,
he might.
Right. It's a good thing he's on this plane. I'll say
right.
for now.
Yeah.
So yeah, and actually, I don't know if you know who played this kid.
I looked him up, but I already forgot.
He's Brandon Cruz, who.
That's right.
And that's one of the reasons this episode is so special. I didn't know this when I selected this, but it's actually a Courtship of Eddie's Father reunion because he was the co-star with Bill Bixby on Bixby's old.
So Bill Bixby was Eddie's father?
Yes.
See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it was a gentle family sitcom.
Yeah.
Very gentle.
Where did that fall in the Bill Bixby timeline?
I believe that was early Bixby. That was
pre My Favorite Martian or post My Favorite Martian?
Post My Favorite Martian.
Okay.
In between like My Favorite Martian and I guess The Magician or whatever he was in before Hulk. So, yes. So it was a while ago, and Brandon Cruz is not entirely all grown up yet, but
yeah,
he's older, so...
And wasn't he also one of the Bad News Bears?
That I don't remember. He was?
I think he was. I think I saw that.
I wouldn't be able to tell you which one he was, but...
I can't look it up right now, but... Actually, I can't.
So...
The magic of technology.
Yes, while you're verifying that, I'll talk about... So you got... It's almost like a little mini disaster movie in this episode.
Yeah.
And I guess I should say right now, this is a great episode.
Yes.
Especially for being so early in the series. You don't get a lot of Hulk in this episode, but it's actually very dramatic even without there being a lot of Hulk in the episode. I guess just the threat of the Hulk is enough to provide a lot of tension.
Well, I think that's interesting when you look back at this show in particular and some of the other shows like that. When you're a kid, all you want is the Hulk. As an adult,
Exactly.
It's fun when he shows up, but it's, like you said, it's like The Fugitive. It's just a compelling drama.
Right.
In which this guy tries to help people and does, but also kind of fails every time.
Yeah, as a kid, I was I don't want to say bored, but clearly I was definitely anticipating the Hulk moments, and it would almost be a letdown after the Hulk would start walking off, and they do a little edit, and that he's going to turn back into David Banner. This episode, though, it wouldn't have even needed the Hulk because it's basically a interesting disaster scenario. Because to get back to the plot, and by the way, did you find?
Yes, Brandon Cruz was Joey Turner.
Joey Turner.
I'm
yes.
not sure which bear that is.
Maybe not one of the more
prominent
bears.
Not Jodie Foster,
but still one of them. Yes.
And not that long hair. Not
Jackie Earle Haley.
Jackie Earle Haley.
Right. Not one of those.
Not one of the.
Not one of the bespectacled ones.
Right.
Yes. Although maybe he was one of the spectacled ones because in this one he was, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
He had some big glasses.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have a Courtship of Eddie's Father reunion. One of the things that make this episode special. But really, this is just a good story, and it's very entertaining.
Yeah.
So basically, the pilot finds out that David is on to him because David's so persistent asking questions about everything.
Right.
And he maneuvers him into the cargo hold. And basically throws him into a cage, locks him in there.
Right. Not a good idea.
Yeah, this is something that's likely to generate stress for
Right.
anybody, really. But
Yeah.
especially David knows what's going on, and actually he overhears the pilot talking about some of their specific plans, and the pilot says something, "Oh, it's a shame you heard that." And then he decides he's got to get rid of him. He can't let him live, basically. So this is when we get a transformation of the Hulk, or David turns into the Hulk, and they have a pretty comical fight scene, I thought, like on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And
There's a pratfall.
yes, there's a lot of tension because there's some kind of liquid.
Yeah, one of the hoses, it's gas or hydraulic fluid or something.
Yes.
It gets ripped. I forget how that happened.
Yeah, and the melee, it gets ripped and leaks onto the floor. So this is almost one of the most ignominious ways to take out the Hulk. He basically slips on the liquid and almost falls out of the plane.
Yeah.
And
then I had a memory, like a childhood memory of this image. He's hanging from the edge of the plane out this doorway, and the guy's stomping on his hands to get him to fall.
And that's a good image, and that's pretty much, if you were going to do an episode with Hulk on a plane,
Yeah.
you would want to figure out a way to get that image, because that's
Right.
like the big image that they probably use to sell the episode, I'm sure.
And I feel like when he supposedly dies in the last episode, I think they revisit that idea. I could be wrong about that, but
The idea of
him falling out of a plane.
him falling out of a plane.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I think in reading summaries of that before, I got it confused with this one. I was like, well,
Okay.
but he didn't die, and I wasn't watching the show at that point.
Yeah,
So,
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
Anyway, the Hulk prevails, though.
Yes, which is good.
Right.
However, there's no pilot that can fly the plane because they administered too much of this knockout drug.
Yeah, she just threw it like 5 or 6 pills in each of these cups of coffee.
Yes, there was no moderation of any kind in this episode.
Because I think they were supposed to wake up in time.
Yeah,
And he's knocked out the other pilot.
yeah. So basically, for like 6 hours, these guys are going to be incapacitated, and they don't have enough fuel, so they've got to land the plane in Denver or something like that, near Colorado. Right. So they try some subtle ways to find out if there's a pilot on the plane, and that doesn't really work. I forget how he does it. I think he asks her, like, if any pilots are interested in checking out the tour of the cockpit.
Right.
Which probably should have raised everybody's eyebrows, But to make a long story short, David has to land the plane himself. There are no other pilots available. So David, unfortunately, this aviation buff teenager,
Right.
he comes in and kind of helps him out, and one of the other flight attendants, and they sort of form this little impromptu flight crew that is going to attempt to land the plane.
Right. Now, the kid doesn't know how to fly a plane, but he does know what things are.
He does.
He can decipher the dials and knobs and say, "Oh, you need that thing."
And it's good.
And there's a guy talking them down too.
Yeah. Well,
in
he's
Robert Stack style.
Yes, and actually that's one of the other things that makes this episode special.
Oh yeah.
Because the man who actually, David is in contact with the traffic controller.
Yeah.
And the guy doesn't think that he has any chance, but he still calls in this other pilot. Okay.
That's right.
A retired, like a captain something or other.
Yeah.
Okay, and the captain is played by one of my favorite villains from 1970s television, the guy that played Officer Kirk on Happy Days, who menaced the Fonz and the community. And I don't know if you remember this, but there was one memorably bad episode where Kirk was trying to shut down Arnold's or whatever, and it culminated with he was trying to ban the Fonz for being a hood with his leather jacket, and he was swaggering and Officer Kirk, and he's definitely carrying himself like this. It basically culminated with everybody else in the cast coming out wearing leather jackets and T-shirts to show their solidarity with the Fonz, and it was done one at a time. Fonz would snap his fingers, and they'd come out, and and of course the audience would be hooting and hollering the whole time. But so it was a totally ridiculous character.
Yeah.
But it was good to see him in this context. Total surprise to me, but he definitely has the pipes to do this role, and he's the one that's going to talk David in, and he does a good job. But at one point, he asks for some reading on one of the gauges, and it's way off, and he covers his mic and says to the traffic controller, "It's supposed to be 35. It's 600. It's supposed to be 3,500. They're never going to make it." And then he turns back. "So David, what getting back to your control panel there?" But nobody thinks that they have a shot at landing the plane, but David gives it a shot.
Right.
And he's remarkably composed during this stressful situation.
For a while.
For a while, yeah. And then eventually he has troubles like there's something wrong with the steering mechanism, and he gets increasingly stressed out, and he yells at the kid and the flight attendant to get out of the cockpit.
Yeah.
He like literally turns around and yells at him, "Get out of here!"
Right. Because his eyes have already gone green.
Yes, he's starting to turn.
Yeah. And I gotta say, not just Hulk flying a plane, which, spoiler, he also does in the Avengers Age of Ultron. But it's a different kind of transformation, because for a lot of it, he's halfway in between.
Yes.
So he's still Bill Bixby in the middle of the transformation. It's instead of already being Lou Ferrigno.
He maintains a lot of David maintains a lot of control in
himself just enough so he's green and his hair is freaky, and
which is very unusual. I don't remember this happening a lot at all during the series.
I don't remember it ever happening.
It might be something that they just abandoned after that, and maybe realized it wouldn't make sense for him not to be able to do that more often.
It took such an amount of control for him to even do that it's an unusual circumstance.
Right. But he does need the Hulk's strength to physically maneuver this plane.
And so finally he completely Lou Ferrigno's out.
Yes.
Not Hulk's out.
Right. Yeah. And the kid comes back in. He realizes something's wrong, and just goes in. And he's basically, in this kind of situation, he's, hey, live and let live. Hey, you're the Hulk. I'm going to deal with this later. I got to help you fly the plane
first. He helps
first.
him find the brakes, right?
Yeah, the kid has remarkable composure.
Yes.
In this situation, I give him credit. I don't know if he was that composed on Courtship of Eddie's Father, but in this, he's aces. He's definitely he definitely is a vital part of landing this plane.
Yeah.
And it goes pretty well. The landing's a little bumpy.
They're like at the edge of the runway.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help, I think, the Hulk to have someone yelling at him in headphones.
No, he didn't. They're trying to
get like a dad teaching a kid to drive.
Right.
Basically, like, you gotta hit the brakes.
Yes, and they're not getting a response from him because I kind of want
off the headphones, or did they?
I think for a while. Well, I can't remember because you still hear them talking to him as if they're coming through the headset.
Yeah.
But Hulk doesn't. He just. I was waiting for him to just go, "Roar," like he's like, I'm trying here.
Right.
But they're just David, can you hear me? David, can you hear me? And, it's the Hulk just looking around like, what am I supposed to do here? I don't know how to fly a plane. Don't look at me. But I give him credit. The Hulk does realize that he's got to land the plane.
Right.
I wonder what would have happened if the plane had crashed. Would the Hulk have? I guess the Hulk would have survived.
He probably would have survived.
Yeah.
But then David Banner's guilt would be even worse.
It would.
He's got a pretty big guilt complex going on already, so.
He does, yes.
I don't know if that would be good for him.
It wouldn't, and maybe it's that part of. I don't know if it's the Hulk being altruistic and saying, I need to land this plane. I don't think the Hulk's expecting us to be a national hero about this, but I don't know if it's self-preservation or what is making him, or it's the control of David that's making him.
That's an interesting point because the Hulk doesn't usually even sit down. He usually just runs through stuff.
Yeah, it's unusual just to see him sitting down at anything, let alone the panels of a 747. The control panel of 747.
So why would he just roll with that?
Right. Well, he's already been, early in the episode, he's already been outside hanging from the thing. And I guess he didn't like that.
Yeah.
So I guess that was enough to say, you know what? I'm going to go down the easy way if I can.
The Hulk can learn just like a little kid.
He can,
burning themselves or something.
Yeah. And, of course, I don't think that the Hulk is not essentially bad in this series. He's more like the Frankenstein's monster. He just doesn't know what he's doing.
Right. He's uncontrolled. He's an animal of sorts.
He is, yes. But he can learn how to fly a plane reasonably well, apparently.
Yeah. And so once they land, it surprised me. I thought, he's going to turn back into Banner.
I did as well, yeah.
And find yet another set of clothes in the luggage compartment.
Yeah, right.
That fits him perfectly.
Yeah. That'd be great if they showed him running, jumping on the plane and then running back on because he realized he forgot his luggage, just grabbing his luggage and then going back off.
Right. And he might have been able to do that because he'd already snuck around the plane a little bit as a monster.
Yeah.
And it's 747, so that's has that second little deck that goes up to their stairs and stuff. He might have been able to sneak out. Instead, he just rampages out of the plane and down the runway.
He takes off. He wants no part of that.
Leaving his carry-on luggage behind.
Which,
Now, of course, he was going by the alias of David Brown.
That's right.
Because David Banner is supposedly dead.
Yeah.
To the world at large, unless you're Jack McGee, David Bruce Banner is dead.
That's right, and that's one of the other things about the show is he always, I believe he always used David.
Right.
His alias was always David something.
David,
so
yeah.
years before the whole Tony Danza thing,
Yes.
this character was pioneering that. Like apparently,
Or the Sonny Crockett thing.
yes,
Right.
This renowned physicist and scientist apparently couldn't hold to an alias unless it involved his real first name.
Yeah.
On The Fugitive, he would always mix it up a little
It was
bit. He
totally
didn't
different,
always
yeah.
call himself Richard something or other. But here it was David. David. What would you say?
Brown.
David Brown. Yeah.
Yeah.
David Brown, not David Banner. Totally different.
Totally
guy.
different, yeah.
Exactly. So unfortunately for him, though, he's
They had to land in Denver, not
yes,
Chicago.
and that's even the Hulk couldn't run to Chicago in time
No.
by 5 o'clock.
This
so-
Hulk, unfortunately, doesn't have the comic book movie Hulk leaping ability,
correct.
where he could leap across the country in a few hours.
It would have made for some cool visuals in the show if he could, though, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It
Be
might
great.
have been a little bit more expensive than they could have.
That was like the one exciting thing in the Ang Lee movie when he was bounding across the desert.
Yes.
It was like getting to see one of those things from the comics.
Yeah, it made it look like it was fun to be the Hulk.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing about the TV series made it look fun to be the Hulk.
Not really, no.
He was constantly beleaguered, or
Yeah. And, of course, this episode, it kind of ends where it began, in a phone booth.
yes.
He finds out it's too late. He's going to wait. I think he has to wait a month.
I think it's even longer. I think it's
It might
3
be
months.
3 months.
I think it's 3 months because he asked we'll only be back about 3 months. So this Sanford Brown, his tour, he must be a real rock star. He's touring over there
Yeah.
for 3 months, giving lectures and doing vital research. I'm
It
sure.
seems like, yeah, it was neuro something. I forget what the other. I saw the word last night when I was looking up something, but
Yeah, and it's related to gamma radiation.
yeah, and cancer treatment maybe. And
Yeah.
The interesting thing here, of course, there's the sad music and Banner walking down the street with his head hanging down.
Mhm.
But I liked it. There were like 5 or 6 other people walking in the exact same pose in different directions, and
Right.
I wrote down at the time I was watching it, they're all Hulks.
that could well be. They're all Hulks, or
Or something. See, maybe
they've got
the
something
Marvel
going on.
universe was existing there. That one of them was Luke Cage, and one of them.
Yeah,
They've all got these secrets.
It's a shame that they can't just get together and help each other out, isn't it?
Right, like form some kind of team.
Right. They're all walking separately off,
Yeah.
on and going their own way, yet sharing a common problem.
Yeah, it was sad.
Yeah, you've made a kind of a sad ending even more sad somehow. I commend you for that. But
It was.
But it's a sad ending to a great episode, though. I
Yeah.
really thought it was exciting. A lot of the action takes place in these small spaces, in the cockpit, in the hold, down on the ground and flight control or whatever. The editing is very good, and they make it seem very tense, I thought.
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, despite me thinking it's a terrible idea for the Hulk to go on a plane,
Yeah,
it's a great idea for a TV episode about the Hulk.
yeah. If you accept the fact that, David's going to get on that plane.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why they introduced that time element, because
Right.
and the trip to go into Europe.
'Cause he
Otherwise,
normally
you'd be
wouldn't do
like,
something
why
like
doesn't
that.
he just take a bus or something like
Yeah.
that?
Plus, again, the money thing. I mean, a flight to San Francisco to Chicago, even back then. Probably then it would have been more expensive. And he's buying it that day.
Yeah, and granted, he's flying coach,
He is flying coach.
because we do see there's a little first class area where all
Yeah,
the
I think that's the upstairs
yeah
area.
the whole
maybe.
crew is sacked out.
Yeah.
As this is
That's-
as
they-
a lot of this is going on. They're just
Dragging
sprawled out, sprawled out over the couches.
Right.
I don't know what. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what they took, but it definitely did knock them out. So
Yeah.
So,
Now, of course, this episode didn't have his nemesis, Jack McGee.
yes, the reporter that's always
For the National
pestering
Register.
him.
Yeah.
He was not in this, but I'm sure he. I will say this for a guy that's trying to remain anonymous, not his own fault, but he certainly left a lot of a big trail in this episode.
I think so.
He saw witnesses saw him.
Right.
Multiple people saw him.
Yeah.
Who knows how people?
And up close. Not
Right.
Not just like running in the distance or saving them in a fire or something.
Yeah, and this is a credible.
There's a kid sitting next to him.
A kid that helped land a 747.
Right.
He's not some crank, dialing up the National Examiner or whatever,
Yeah.
saying, "Hey,
And
this
he
is
said
gonna
a
be
very
credible
composed
witness."
kid.
Yes, and who knows, people, if they happen to look out the window after they finally landed, they'd see this, big green Hulk running away. So,
Right.
in addition to the fact that the guy that flew the plane, that landed the plane, as far as everybody else knows, David, he's gone.
Yeah.
So This must have been a great story.
That would, yeah. I wonder if they wanted to like debrief him. Yeah, I don't know where he went.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, or maybe the kid took all the credit for it. He said, "Yeah, I was David the whole
I'm
time.
David, yeah.
I just didn't think that you just panic if you thought a kid was trying to fly the plane.
Right.
So I claimed to be David."
I like that, and it seemed like by the end of the flight, the shoe guy and his mom were a little friendlier.
Yes, they were. Yeah, she warmed up to him a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a love connection there, but at least they could they might hang out in the airport bar while they're waiting for their next flight. Because of course, I'm assuming that's what happens, right? They're going to go to
because
the
they
Denver.
all got to go to Chicago.
They're going to go to the Denver airport and just catch the next connecting flight to Chicago right away, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully they'll get some vouchers or something.
Yeah, they'll get
Drink
vouchers for like free coffee.
Yeah.
I don't know. Free meal on the next flight or something like that.
Right. We're sorry one of our pilots tried to steal things, and a monster had to land your plane in Denver.
Because that's the thing. Again, I think you might have mentioned this, but nobody else knew, because Officer
right.
Kirk mentions this, that it was supposed to be a big secret. They were flying this King Tut stuff in secrecy, or attempting to fly in secrecy.
Because they didn't want it to get stolen.
I'm sure they didn't want it to go into a ball of flames either, but that's almost what happened.
Yeah.
So David didn't just save the lives of all those passengers. He saved a lot of historical artifacts. He did.
He did.
So I would say well done, David Banner, in this episode.
Yeah.
But his journey to find a cure continues, and he's got to wait at least 3 months.
At least 3 months.
And then
I have a feeling it's going to be longer.
Yeah. and I wonder, like, once he's going off, I'm hoping he's going, at least starts making his way to Chicago, because he's going to have to walk to Chicago.
Right.
He might need 3 months to get there.
That's true.
I'm sure he's not going to take a
he
plane
does some
again.
hitchhiking. He might ride a bus. Again, that doesn't seem like a great idea, but you can get off a bus a lot easier than a plane.
Yeah.
If he starts feeling edgy, he can.
Right, he can make some excuse.
Pull the rope and
just
get off.
Pull the rope and
Yeah.
Off in the middle of nowhere. Hey, buddy, there's no stop here. I just need to get off.
A car sick.
Yeah.
You do look a little green.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's.
I guess what we're trying to say is it's not easy being David Banner.
It isn't.
So, so 747, highly recommend this episode, and it really makes me eager to see more episodes of The Hulk. I don't know if they're all going to be as good as this. Those first season ones were probably, I recall that there were a lot of pretty good ones in there, but this is definitely one of the best episodes that I remember, and I would definitely recommend it to even somebody that's not necessarily familiar with the Hulk. This is probably a good place to start, because it's a very good episode.
I agree. And the last time I watched I watched a two-parter. I forget what season, but it does involve. There actually is a second Hulk.
Oh, the second Hulk.
Yeah, he's some mountain man, like hillbilly kind of guy.
Really?
Not casting aspersions on him.
Does he wear flannel?
He does wear flannel,
even when he's the Hulk.
I think so. Yeah, he doesn't get as big as Lou Ferrigno. He's still a different actor, and he's really weird looking. Like I remember as a kid, it freaked me out.
Yeah.
Like because his face is just kind of flat, and his hair kind of does a Jim from Taxi thing.
Does he have like a classic hillbilly beard?
He doesn't have a beard now.
Oh, that's too bad.
He's beardless.
The corncob pipe?
No, he's not quite that.
Okay. But I'd settle for a flannel shirt, I think.
He does have a flannel shirt.
Yeah, maybe he's more like a lumberjack look kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that might be more.
Okay.
Yeah, like a red flannel.
That's still pretty good.
Red and black flannel, yeah.
That sounds pretty good. I don't, maybe it's just my inherent cultural bias, because you're talking about, his rural origins, but my first instinct, I'm ashamed to admit, is that second Hulk probably wouldn't be able to land a 747.
Yeah, I don't think so. But he could probably drive a pickup truck.
Well, that's good enough. So if David ever needs is finding a ride to Chicago, maybe he'll hook up with the second Hulk and.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Well, I think also his non-Hulk thing. He's like a really old guy.
Oh.
And partly like being a Hulk has prolonged his life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So he's kind of a hermit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Living out in the middle of nowhere, and
I think someone's helping him hide his secret.
Right.
I forget what caused him to be a Hulk, but
and of course it's David Banner's bad luck that he encounters him. Out of all the lonely hermits in the world,
to that town, like I think that is very Jack McGee heavy too.
Mm.
So like he had gone investigating reports of that.
Yeah.
And Maybe Banner went for the same reason, because maybe this guy has some information that could help them cure.
I see.
Each other.
That definitely sounds like one I'm going to have to add to my list. That sounds good.
Yeah.
But yeah, of all the scenarios, if you're looking through it, and that's why I picked this episode actually, because Hulk on a plane, it sounded like a great one, and I think it delivered. I almost said I delivered. I didn't mean to say that. It delivered. I give all the credit in the world.
You delivered in choosing it.
Yes, thank you, thank you. But I give all the credit to the fine cast and crew and Officer Kirk and everybody made this so good. And the courtship of Eddie's father reunion, it was great.
Yeah. Are there any moral lessons we can learn from this?
From this episode, moral lessons? I don't know. Well, it's definitely like a crime doesn't pay episode, because this pilot and his accomplice, terrible plan. It did not work at all. It failed spectacularly.
Yeah, and clearly they didn't do a lot of research. I think they researched the stealing and aircraft part of it.
Yeah.
They didn't research the medicine.
No.
Like, they had no sense of dosages at all.
They really assumed, They should have had some more quality control on that stage, and maybe they would have gotten away with everything.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, let's also blame here.
That's right. Criminals plan better, and then you can get away with it.
Yes.
That's the moral lesson, right?
I think I have another moral lesson I just realized is, don't be a grabby Gus. That old guy in the plane, he grabbed the coffee.
Exactly.
And he totally, anything that was going to happen, this guy made it totally worse by being selfish and grabbing his coffee.
Right.
A plane is like a little
that
community.
Caused her to up the dosages, I think.
Yes. A plane is like a little community, and everybody's supposed to be working together. This guy had to get his early, and look what happened. This whole chain reaction almost got them all killed, all because the guy needed his caffeine.
Right.
And couldn't wait 5 minutes to get his cup.
Yeah, exactly. There's a system.
Right.
They'll get it to you eventually.
The real villain of the episode is that old guy, actually.
It really is. He's...
Everything would have gone off without a hitch if not for that.
I mean, the only good thing is that allowed Banner to discover it. But on the other hand, it seemed like their plan, while robbing people of King Tut, wouldn't have caused this chaos if it had worked it properly.
Yeah. Do you think they would have been able to land the plane safely? Like say she might have gotten the dosage right. It might have all worked out, and at least everybody would have been safe.
Yeah.
But David still would have missed his trip to Chicago because.
Well, they might have gotten to Chicago on time.
Oh, that's true, because the plan was for the pilots to be revived in time to land the plane in Chicago.
That's a long flight.
This really doesn't make sense the more I think about it.
No.
It was worth a shot, though, right?
Yeah. And maybe that pilot shouldn't have been a grabby Gus with the stewardess.
That's true.
Maybe that's part of the problem. And he was being greedy about trying to steal King Tut.
He was.
Just for a payday.
King Tut belongs to everybody, not just to this one guy.
That's right.
I don't know what his plan was. I can't remember if he said, was he going to fence King Tut? Like, did he know somebody like in...
I think he had a plan. Yeah.
He knew a guy who knew a guy that could sell King Tut.
Right, yeah. And maybe it's King Tut's curse.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Nobody mentions that.
Nobody died, but
it
didn't work out for the people trying to steal it, so...
It certainly didn't. And that's probably why they tried to keep it a secret, because everybody would have thought, hey... We ain't getting on a plane with this guy. They shouldn't have flown everything on a plane, and it should have just been an empty plane, a cargo-only plane.
That would have made more sense.
Seems... I love this episode, but there's a lot of bad decisions going around in this
Columbia
episode.
Airlines just seems to maybe not have the best minds.
They don't, yeah.
Right.
It was poorly managed.
Yeah.
And they
Other than that guy, the pilot who talked him down.
Yeah.
He seemed on top of things.
I'm wondering about the future of this airline after this, because on the one hand, it's spectacularly good publicity in the sense that that they got this happy ending. But on the other hand, really does not look good at all for this airline.
No,
just a lot of deceit and criminal activity by its employees, by its pilots.
Yep. And then they're gonna have to cover up the Hulk.
Yeah.
That's. I think they got bought by Oceanic Airlines.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So.
And then they had decades of good flying, and nothing went wrong for a while.
For a while.
Yeah. But they did recover a little bit from this.
Just rebranding.
That's right. Rebranding is the key.
Yeah.
So
that's the other moral.
This is rebranding. If they had Twitter back then, I'm sure they would have been all out in front of this immediately after this happened.
Hopefully, if they had Twitter back then and Wi-Fi on planes, someone on the crew who was left would have known to switch off the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Immediately, because otherwise,
right.
Somebody would be tweeting about the Hulk, and not that most of the people saw him until the end, but
that actually might work out to the Hulk's. Now that you mention it, his benefit, they might suppress this.
Yeah.
it's going to be in their best interest to make up something.
I would think
They
so.
probably will try to say it. The kid landed the plane himself. I wouldn't be
that's
surprised
a cool
at all.
story.
It's a lot better than the Hulk thing, and they could definitely have done a follow up to this episode
I think so.
without the Hulk. But it probably wouldn't have been that popular to have like next Friday night or whatever on CBS to have an episode 747 Part 2.
Right.
And they just show what happened to everybody else on the plane, like
Yeah.
the shoe guy, the kid, and everybody else.
Maybe they could
the
have
old
just
couple.
done like an Animal House thing at the end.
Whatever happened, yeah.
Like show the kid
Yeah.
like being held up on the shoulders of everyone, and
Right. The kid,
right.
pledged Phi Beta, and flunked out of college in aerodynamics engineering, because of poor grades. The old couple finally made it to Chicago, and I don't know what they did in Chicago. I can't remember what they were doing.
Well, he made sure to get his cup of coffee on time. King Tut managed to travel the world.
Yeah, just a freeze frame of King Tut. Like he would be the very last one.
Yeah.
King Tut, had a successful touring career. Inspired a hit album by Steve Martin and went on to live happily ever after. I would have liked to have seen that. I think you've successfully wrapped up this episode.
All right.
747 by the Hulk, a great one. So I would say check it out.
Season 1, Netflix and other places, right?
That's right.
All streaming services, you think?
Only Netflix at this point. Netflix that I know of.
Okay.
That's good enough though.
That's good. Everyone has that.
Netflix and DVD. This segment brought to you by the National Register. The truth is in here. This segment also brought to you by Columbia Airlines. No other airline has pilots like we do. This segment also brought to you by Dr. Sanford Charles. Can it wait till he gets back from Europe?
Fun, all the shows A to Z and the facts. What's behind what you see? TV Guide, the whole world of TV. That's entertainment. The stars underneath all the glow and the news from the people who know TV Guide. It's a fabulous show, so buy a TV Guide and read TV Guide. That's entertainment.
Okay, so it's time to do the TV Guide game. The basic setup here is from my collection of old TV guides. Right now, Mike is going to read what's on at a specific day and time in the past, and then he's going to try to guess what I would watch from those times, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Mike, when you're ready, tell us how far back in the time machine you've gone and what's on that night.
Okay, we are looking at January 31st, 1979, from the TV Guide episode issue that covered January 27th to February 2nd, featuring Katharine Hepburn on the cover. A lovely painting of Katharine Hepburn. And we're going to look at 2 hours here, from 8 to 9 and then 9 to 10.
Okay.
And this is Wednesday, 1979. On CBS, The Incredible Hulk. David, Bill Bixby, befriends an impoverished car wash employee who depends on the charity of a drug pusher to support himself and his diabetic brother.
Oh, okay.
On NBC, circus highlights. And it tells me to turn to page A92 for a close-up.
Oh, a close-up. This must be a special program.
Circus highlights. It's only an hour. Danny Kaye is the host for highlights from the 109th edition of the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, taped in St. Petersburg, Florida. Animals. Gunther Gable Williams works elephants, Bengal tigers, and a leapfrogging panther, and a fire-jumping leopard. And in a display of showmanship and nerve, lies down among deadly bedfellows, 13 leopards, 2 panthers, and a puma.
Wow.
Aerial thrills. High-wire artists flip, spin, and twirl 40 feet up without a net. A French aerial artist, whirling about on a device attached to her hair, headlines a mid-air ballet set to can-can music. Cuban and Chilean troops execute intricate somersaults on the flying trapeze and acrobatics. 3 companies bound off trampolines in an act that's capped by one performer's leap into 6 full-body twists. In parentheses, a slow-motion replay shows that the feat may have realized 7 twists. And they have a picture of Gunther Gable Williams standing on top of an elephant with a tiger.
An amazing man.
Yes. So that was NBC. On ABC, 8 is enough. They don't have a description. However, there's an ad.
Okay. So, yeah, can you give me some details from the ad there? Help me make my decision.
Is the Bradford house haunted? Lights go out. Doors mysteriously open and close. Susan vanishes. Stranger shows up. Where's Nicholas?
Oh, so many questions.
I know.
Oh,
Man, wow. Danny Kaye is making a face in the ad for this circus thing. Okay, so and at 9 o'clock.
man.
Oh, sorry, I skipped PBS. Do you want to hear PBS?
Go ahead and tell me PBS.
2 shows on PBS. From 8 to 8:30, you got John Calloway interviews. Guest Edward Levi, former U.S. Attorney General, who discusses that office and the state of justice in America. 7:30, Best of Ernie Kovacs. A poker game is synchronized with Beethoven's Fifth. 2 flies discussing the state of their world, and a chef prepares a souffle according to an instruction record. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, at 9 o'clock on CBS, have One Day at a Time. Julie falls into a severe depression because her designing career seems to have reached a dead end.
Poor Julie.
Poor Julie. NBC, this will actually take you to the end of the night. 2-hour movie, adventure, daredevil cyclist Evel Knievel does his thing and battles drug smugglers in Viva Knievel.
Ah, awesome.
Starring Will Atkins, Kate Morgan, Ben Andrews, and I presume Evel Knievel.
I think
Yes.
he played himself in that. Yeah.
Also, Frank Gifford as himself. Ooh, and Leslie Nielsen. On ABC, Charlie's Angels. The Angels zero in on a beach disco scene when it is discovered that 3 murder victims were seen nearby shortly before they were killed. And this is from the Cheryl Ladd era. And
So Cheryl Ladd, Jacqueline Smith, and Kate Jackson.
yes. And then PBS has great performances. Samuel Barber as Vanessa. And at 8:30 or 9:30, excuse me, the Jeffersons on
On
CBS,
CBS,
yeah.
following One Day at a Time.
Yes.
Okay, what happens on the Jeffersons tonight?
Florence's Bible-thumping boyfriend is coming to dinner with an appetite for matrimony. Okay?
I can only imagine.
Yeah. Huh. So now I'm supposed to guess which of these you would watch.
Yes, and I should say, even though this is 1979 and technology wasn't what it was, I'm assuming that we did have the capability to turn the channel. So for the purpose of this game, I could pick shows from different networks from 8 to 9, I can flip. I can flip. Okay, it doesn't have to be 8 ABC 8 to 10.
No.
Okay.
I was going to choose each hour.
just to clarify. Okay.
This is tough. I think for the 8 o'clock hour, I'm going to say 8 is enough. It's because it sounds like a very odd, atypical episode. I'm assuming it's a rerun, too. Maybe that's why they didn't have a description for it. But,
That makes sense.
although, the Hulk sounds like a pretty excellent Hulk.
It does. It sounds like there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, and it's the circus one is appealing in a way because that's the only time it probably aired.
Right.
And then 9 o'clock, I'm assuming you're allowed to stay up till 11. And I'm going to go with the Evel Knievel movie. The sitcoms didn't sound very exciting, and Charlie's Angels sounded okay, but nothing special.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I have made my selections.
Okay.
I've written them down here, so those of you listening, don't worry. There's no chicanery going on here. Mike did not see my answers, but I have written them down before he made his choices.
More radio magic.
Yes. All right, so you are correct on 8 is enough. I went with that because as tempting as that Hulk episode. Well, first of all, PBS, bless them, they try, but that was an interesting blend of what PBS used to be. Like a really old show that would have been cool. That's cool that it was on that they would never show now.
Right.
And then like an actual serious program that they would probably never show now at 7:30 p.m. But I'm skipping that out. The circus highlights, if it were Circus of the Stars, I might have been tempted.
Yeah.
But
Just regular circus.
yeah, Ringling Brothers, it wasn't live. It was clearly taped by the fact that TV Guide had access to see the slow motion
And it's
replay.
even called highlights.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I'm guessing the idea there was like, well, not everybody can make it to the Ringling Brothers Circus. So
Sure.
Here it is, America.
Yeah.
Or you really should go to the circus. Here's what you might see.
Yes.
Plus some stuff we're not showing you.
It sounds good, actually, and I loved
It
the
does.
circus as a kid, and it sounded exciting. At Ringling Brothers, I'm sure it was a first-class presentation, but I ruled that out, and I went with 8 is enough over Hulk. There might be a little bias in my mind, I must admit, because it's easier for me to see these Hulk episodes, so that 8 is enough jumps out a little bit.
Right.
All those unanswered questions, what happened to Susan? She was the one that disappeared, right?
Yes.
Where's Nicholas? I got to find out. Is the Bradford house really haunted? I'm really anxious right now to find out what the explanation of that is. So definitely at 8 o'clock, 8 is enough for me.
Yeah.
8 is more than enough, I think. And that was what I'd go with in the first hour.
Yeah. And I hope they're back to 8 by the end.
I hope so, yeah. They might have
like
to
they're
change
down
the
to
show.
6.
That's right. They might have to really retool that show after that episode. 9 o'clock, the One Day at a Time Jefferson's lineup, that might have been what I might have actually watched back then. Mm-hmm. But today it doesn't sound that appealing. The Jeffersons, the Bible-thumping boyfriend, I don't remember that character at all. I'm assuming it was a one-time character.
Right.
Even though apparently close enough to Florence that he's proposing marriage, but probably one of those things that they just brought him on. And
yeah.
One can only imagine the sparks that would fly between him and George at the dinner table,
Exactly.
though, right? But I'm skipping over that. PBS, the great performances, I'm sure it was great, but not great enough for me. Evel Knievel movie. I have seen that movie before.
Oh.
It was very entertaining.
Yeah.
And it'd be a fine choice, but I'm actually going with Charlie's Angels. I can't resist that beach disco. I'm a big fan of watching disco episodes in modern times. I love the disco era. Mm-hmm. And the thought of Jacqueline Smith in a disco setting, it's irresistible. So I got to admit, I would probably go with Charlie's Angels over the Evel Knievel movie at 9 o'clock. But you may not have won this game, Mike, but I think anybody watching TV on Wednesday, January 31st, 1979 would be a winner. I think we can agree on that.
Nothing gets you into it like TV Guide.
Join us next time for another exciting episode of Battle of the Network shows. Learn more, leave feedback, and suggest future episodes at battleofthenetworkshows.com. Follow us on Twitter at BatNetShows and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/battleofthenetworkshows.
Has ever